My identical twin sister came to visit me at the hospital, covered in bruises across her entire body. Realizing she was being abused, I decided to exchange my life for hers, to teach that monster a lesson he would never forget. My name is Lucy. My sister's is Emily. We were twins, identical as two peas in a pod, yet our destinies were as different as oil and water, as heaven and earth. People said I wasn't well, that I was crazy. The doctors used more elegant words. They said I had an impulse control disorder, that I struggled to regulate my emotions. I describe it as feeling too much. I feel everything 10 times more intensely than others do. My joy can make my chest explode, and my anger, well, my anger is what brought me to this place. When I was 16, I broke the arm of a neighborhood kid with a chair. He hadn't done anything to me directly. He had just grabbed my sister Emily's hair and was trying to drag her into a dark alley. Emily was only crying, and I felt the blood boiling in my head. I don't recall exactly what I did. I only remember the sound of a bone snapping, the boy's scream, and the horrified eyes of the people staring at me. They weren't looking at him, they were looking at me. They called me a demon. My parents, who were already struggling, began to endure the worst. They were afraid of me. Eventually, they brought me here to Peaceful Haven Psychiatric Facility. And so, 10 years passed. 10 years living in a white room less than 100 square feet. 10 years seeing the world through a barred window. 10 years where my only friends were medication and the soulless shrieks of the other patients. But if I'm honest, I didn't hate this place. It was quiet. No one bothered me. I had time to read and exercise. For the last 10 years, I had trained every day. I did push-ups and pull-ups, using the window bars as a bar. I did sit-ups, anything to burn the energy boiling inside me. My body was lean, but hard as a rock. The only gift this decade of confinement gave me was probably a physical strength that many men outside would envy. I had only one ache, one sole concern: my sister Emily. She inherited all of our mother's kindness, and I inherited all of our father's fierceness. She was soft as water, incapable of hurting anyone's feelings. The day they took me away, she cried until she had no tears left. "Lucy, it should have been me who left. I'm useless." I slapped her, the only time in my life I ever struck her. "If you ever say that stupidity again, I will escape and strangle you. You have to live, you have to be happy. Live for both of us," she promised me. The following year, she came to see me with a man, saying they were getting married. His name was Jake. He was handsome and tall, but his gaze was dishonest. His eyes shifted constantly, and when he looked at me, I sensed a subtle superiority and contempt. I gripped my sister's hand tightly. "I don't like this man. Think again, sister." Emily only offered a sad smile. "With my luck, it's enough that someone wants to marry me. Our parents are old, and he has promised to take good care of me." I wanted to scream. I wanted to break the glass separating us, but what could I do? I was the crazy one. What weight could my words possibly carry? The wedding took place, and I couldn't attend. Emily visited me every month. She always brought a gift, like a box of fruit or some pastries. She talked about her new life. She proudly announced her pregnancy. She also talked about her daughter, Ella. Her voice strained to sound cheerful. But I am Lucy, her other half. I knew she was lying. Each time she visited, she was a little thinner. The dark circles under her eyes were darker, and her smile was fragile and painfully forced. She always wore long-sleeved shirts buttoned up to her neck, even in the scorching summer heat. I asked her several times, but she always claimed a married woman should dress modestly. A lie. She was hiding something. Today was visiting day again. I waited from early morning. The sky outside was gray. Like my heart, I had a terrible premonition. The rage I had suppressed for 10 years began to stir. It was like a hungry beast, crouching, waiting for a single drop of blood to fall. And I knew that today, that drop of blood was going to fall. I heard the dry click of the lock, and the heavy iron door opened with a screech. The instant Emily walked in, I felt as if someone had squeezed my heart. The person standing before me was not the Emily I knew. She was just a fragile, emaciated shadow. She wore an old shirt with worn shoulders, the collar up to her chin. Despite the suffocating summer heat, she was dressed like this. Her hair was messy, her face sunken and pale, but what made my blood freeze were her eyes. Where were my sister's clear, sweet eyes? Now there were only 2 deep pits filled with despair, 2 dull, lifeless pupils. And beneath her left cheekbone, a faint, purplish bruise, clumsily concealed with cheap drugstore makeup. She forced a smile that turned my stomach. "Lucy, how are you?" Her voice was weak and trembling, like a dry leaf. She placed a basket of bruised oranges on the table, likely bought on sale at the grocery store to save money. I didn't answer. I approached and stood firmly in front of her. I raised my hand, and with my calloused fingers, I gently touched the bruise under her eye. She startled and took a step back, like a small bird frightened by a bending branch. "Oh, it's nothing. I fell off my bike." "You fell?" I repeated in a voice cold as ice. "You fall, and you only get a bruise on one eye? How do you have to fall for that to happen?" She stammered, lowered her head, and wrung her hands. I looked at her hands. Her knuckles were swollen and red, her nails short and full of scratches. Were these the hands of someone who worked hard, or someone desperately defending herself? The rage began to climb. I took a deep breath, trying to keep the calm in my voice. "I'm asking you, sister, why are you wearing long sleeves in this heat? I don't like the Sunday. I've been a bit weak lately. I couldn't take it anymore." I grabbed her wrist. She let out a small cry and tried to pull away. "Lucy, what are you doing? It hurts." That "it hurts" was like pouring gasoline on a fire. Ignoring her pleas, I jerked her sleeve up roughly, and then I saw it. The map of hell. My sister's thin, pale arms were covered in bruises, old, yellowish bruises, recent dark purple bruises, red swollen marks. There were circular marks, as if she had been squeezed tightly with fingers, and elongated marks, like from a whip or a belt. I released her hand. My whole body trembled, not from fear, but from rage. A searing, insane rage that I hadn't felt in 10 years. That bastard Jake. I clenched my teeth. It wasn't a question, it was a certainty. Emily froze. She stopped hiding it, and as if a dam had broken, she collapsed, covered her face, and began to sob. A long contained cry erupted, a sad, bitter weeping that filled the white room. "Lucy, Lucy, save me, help me!" She crawled across the floor and clung to my legs. "He hits me. He hits me constantly. His mother, his sister, the whole family treats me worse than a dog. And he hits Ella too. He hits Ella." That last sentence turned me to stone. That monster had hit Ella, my 3-year-old niece. I bent down and lifted her up. This time she slumped into my arms, powerless. I looked at her tear-swollen face. I looked at those eyes identical to mine, now filled only with despair. "Stop crying." My voice was deep and hoarse. "Crying solves nothing. Tell me everything, from beginning to end. What has that bastard done to you? What has he done to Ella?" I sat my sister down on my single metal bed. I poured her a glass of water. She drank through sobs, and then she began to speak. Her desperate confession was the death sentence for that family. Emily, sitting on the bed with trembling shoulders, agitated the glass of water in her hands. In a broken voice that choked in her throat, she began to speak. Every word she uttered was like a knife plunging into my heart. "In the beginning of the marriage, he behaved well. Lucy, at least in front of our parents," she began to recount. "But it was when I moved in with them that I discovered what hell was like. Her husband, Jake, was a gambling addict. As a simple factory worker, he earned a miserable wage, but every night he blew it all in sportsbooks and casinos. He spent all our wedding money in 3 months," she sobbed. "When I said something, he slapped me. It was the first time. 'What would you know, woman?' he told me. 'It's my money. I'll do what I want.' That slap was the start of a habit. If he lost money on bets, he hit his wife. If he won, he still hit her, saying that because of her bad luck, he hadn't won more. I squeezed my fist so hard that my nails dug into my flesh, but I felt no pain. But the worst part, My sister trembled. Wasn't Jake. It was his mother, my mother-in-law, Mrs. Peterson, a terrifyingly evil and despotic woman. She considered Emily an annoyance, like a thief who had stolen her son. She tormented her little by little. If I cooked, she complained it was salty or bland, scraped the entire pot into the compost bin, and forced me to do it again. Even if I cleaned the house 3 times, she said it was dirty. And that woman forced me to hand wash all the family's laundry, even my sister-in-law Martha's. I closed my eyes. The image of my sweet, shy Emily crouched, washing those dirty things, made me nauseous. And the sister-in-law? I growled. She was worse. Emily shook her head. She got divorced, came with a child, and lives rent-free at her mother's house. She treated me like a maid. She left clothes scattered everywhere and ordered me to wash them. Her son, Leo, is a spoiled brat. He abused Ella every day. My eyes snapped open. What did he do to Ella? Emily started crying again. Ella is only 3, Lucy. Leo is 5. He took her toys, pushed her, and threw her on the ground. He even spit on her plate. When I said something, my sister-in-law came running and insulted me. Who do you think you are to scold my son? Does your daughter even have a father? And she even encouraged her son to hit Ella. Hit her son. Spoiled brats need a lesson to learn. The mother-in-law just watched and laughed. They're just kids. Your daughter, since she's older, has to yield to her cousin. And Jake? Her husband? The child's father? I asked, my voice hoarse. He. Emily lowered her head and said in a whisper. He looked the other way. He said women should only bear sons, that having a daughter is useless. And, she hesitated. Speak, I shouted, and she flinched. Yesterday, he came back completely drunk after losing money gambling. Ella was crying because Leo was pulling her hair, and he went crazy. Shut up, you useless brat, he screamed at her. Because the child got scared and cried louder, he couldn't continue speaking and put a hand to her cheek. He hit Ella in the face, I whispered, feeling as if someone was strangling me. Emily nodded. Tears poured down. She's only 3. She had the mark of 5 fingers on her face. When I ran to protect her and beg him, he hit me. He dragged me to the bathroom. He smashed my head against the sink. I thought I was going to die, Lucy. I couldn't breathe. The bruises on my arms are from the mother-in-law and the sister-in-law. Instead of stopping him when they saw him hitting me, they joined in. Martha scratched me with a hairbrush, and Mrs. Peterson grabbed dirty socks and shoved them in my mouth to shut me up. It was enough. Everything inside me crumbled: calmness, patience, submission. I leaped up. Emily looked at me, terrified. Lucy, what are you going to do? I walked to the room's only metal mirror. I looked at myself. My face was pale, but my eyes were burning. I looked at Emily. We were identical, the same face, the same build. The only difference was that she was dying inside, and I had just been reborn. Sister. I turned around. My voice was terrifyingly calm. You didn't come to visit me today. You came to exchange your life. Emily froze, staring at me. Her eyes widened in terror. Lucy, what are you saying? Exchange our lives? I looked her directly in the eyes with firmness and without the slightest hesitation. You stay here, and I go out. No, no. Emily shook her head hurriedly and grabbed my hand. Lucy, don't you understand? That place is hell. Those people are beasts. You've been locked up here for 10 years. You won't survive out there. And what about the paperwork? How will you get out? I smiled coldly. You're wrong, sister. Precisely because I've been here 10 years, I can survive with those beasts. Look, I pointed to the bars. I've lived with beasts here too. The only difference is that the ones here are locked up and the ones out there are loose. I released her hand and grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me well. You're not crazy. That's why you can't defeat them. I am crazy. Only a crazy person like me can handle that trash. Do you think I'm going to escape? I offered a slight smile. No, I'm going to walk out the front door with full honors. I led her to the metal mirror. Look, we are one. Who will distinguish who is Emily and who is Lucy? Emily tremblingly looked at our reflection. We were identical down to the last hair. "This is the plan," I said quickly. Visiting time was almost over. "Take off your clothes. I'll take off the hospital gown. We switch. Lucy. But no buts." I cut her off. "Do you want Ella to live her whole life getting beaten? Do you want to rot in that corner? Trust me, I haven't rotted here for 10 years in vain. I've been waiting for this day." I explained the plan. "From now on, you are Lucy. You are safe in this room. No one will hit you or bother you. The doctors and nurses here are good people. They just don't understand me. You just stay calm. If someone asks you anything, you don't have to answer. Just nod or shake your head. They are used to me doing that. They will say, 'How quiet Lucy is today.' You just eat, sleep, and read. See all the books I've read? Read those. Relax." I looked deeply into her eyes, conveying my calm. "You don't have to do anything. Just wait for me. I will clean up that dumpster. I will make them pay for what they have done. I will get Ella out of there. I promise you." Emily's desperate gaze slowly shifted toward a faint ray of hope. Although weak, she was in a dead end. She had nothing to lose. She nodded her head. "Be careful, I know." We quickly exchanged clothes. I put on her old, ragged clothing. It smelled of mold, fear, and a faint trace of blood. The rage boiled inside me again. I put Emily's ID and the old house keys into my pocket. In the loose patient gown, Emily suddenly looked very small. I gave her a tight hug. "Don't move from here. Wait." The bell rang, announcing the end of visiting hours. I took a deep breath and walked to the door. The duty nurse saw me and nodded. "Mrs. Emily, are you leaving now?" I nodded, forcing a trembling smile identical to my sister's. The iron door of the patient's ward slammed shut behind me. A dry metallic sound echoed. I walked out the main door of the facility. The dazzling summer sun hit my face. 10 years. I breathed free air after 10 years. It was filled with car exhaust, dust, and the noisy roar of the street. But for me, it was the smell of war, and I was a demon freshly released from its chains. I squeezed the bunch of keys in my pocket. "Jake, Mrs. Peterson, Martha, Leo, I'm coming." I took a bus and walked nearly a mile further. Remembering Emily's directions, their house was deep within a dark, winding alley in a neglected area of the city. The houses were pressed close together, damp, with electrical wires tangled like cobwebs. The smell of sewage and stale food hit my nose. I stopped in front of a dilapidated, single-story row house. The iron gate was rusty. Emily lived here. My sister, who had always been so neat and tidy, had been forced to bury her life in a place worse than my cell. My hands trembled as I put the key in the lock. The door opened with a screech. The first thing I saw was chaos. Clothes thrown carelessly over a chair, plates with food scraps on the table from lunch, attracting flies. The floor was sticky, and a sour, nauseating smell of laziness and filth permeated everything. And then I saw my niece, Ella. She was sitting in the darkest corner of the house by the leg of an old cabinet. She was skin and bones, with pale skin. She wore an old, small dress with a large tear at the shoulder. She held a doll without a head. Hearing the noise of the door, she startled. She lifted her head. Seeing me, her mother, she didn't run to me. She flinched and hugged the doll tightly with both hands. Her eyes were full of fear. The child was afraid of her own mother. I felt like my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Damn beasts. What had they done to a child? They had turned a 3-year-old girl into a frightened creature who feared even her own mother. I tried to soften my expression. I bent down and struggled to use a gentle, almost forgotten voice. "Ella, Mommy is here." The child only trembled and stared at me. "Come to Mommy." I held out my hand. The child hesitated, looked at me, and then looked behind me as if expecting someone else. And that someone spoke. That bitch crawled back again. A sour, malicious voice came from inside. Emily's mother-in-law, Mrs. Peterson, shuffled out. She was short and fat, with ashen-colored skin. She wore loud floral pajamas and held a hand fan. "Where have you been all day to come back now? Did you go see your crazy sister?" She spat on the floor right next to me. "Did you bring anything into this house? Or are you here again with that miserable face to mooch off our food? I stood up slowly, shielding Ella behind my back. I looked at her. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. I fixed my eyes on her cloudy, wicked eyes. I recognized this face. The old woman seemed to notice something was different. The daughter-in-law, who usually lowered her head and trembled when insulted, today stood tall and dared to look her in the face. "What? What are you staring at?" She raised the fan and pointed at my face. "What got into you today? Do you want me to scratch your eyes out?" I offered a very slight, slow smile. "Excuse me, mother-in-law. I didn't hear you well." My smile seemed to freeze her blood. Before she could finish, another shrill voice interrupted her. "Oh, Mom, why bother talking to her? Just tell her to make dinner. I'm starving." My sister-in-law, Martha, came out of the main room. She was as fat as her mother, her face full of acne, and her artificially dyed blonde hair messy. Behind her, a 5-year-old fat boy followed with an arrogant air. He was the spitting image of his mother. Leo! Seeing Ella, he ran toward her. "Hey, you're playing with the doll. Give it to me." He roughly snatched the headless doll from her hands. Ella, frightened, burst into tears. Give it back, cousin. It's mine." "I won't give it back. Your toys are mine." Leo lifted the doll and threw it against the wall. "Who plays with this garbage?" He turned toward Ella and pushed her hard. "Why are you crying? Shut up. If you cry again, I'll really hit you." Ella fell onto the dirty floor. She was so scared that she stopped crying abruptly. Only a choked sob escaped her throat. Mrs. Peterson and Martha watched, laughing as if it were highly amusing. "That's my boy," Martha said, raising her chin. "Men have to be strong like that, not like that wimpy girl." My rage. Yes, there you were, roaring in my chest. 10 years of repression. It was over. The smile vanished from my face. Leo, seeing that Ella wasn't crying, grew even bolder. He walked over and raised his foot to kick her. "I told you to shut up, you." A hand grabbed his ankle in the air. Leo lost his balance and fell backward, but his ankle remained seized. It was my hand. Suddenly, the house fell into a deathly silence. Leo's eyes widened. He was used to abusing his cousin, used to his grandmother and mother always taking his side. Ella's mother had never laid a finger on him. "Let go of me. Let go, you crazy witch." "How dare you touch my leg?" he struggled. Without saying a word, I tightened my grip slightly. "Ow, it hurts. It hurts. Mom, Grandma, this ant is breaking my leg." Leo started shrieking. Martha finally reacted. "Oh my God, Emily, what are you doing? Let go of my son right now." She ran toward me, ready to scratch my face with her red-painted nails. Still holding Leo's leg, I raised my other hand and blocked Martha's arm. I grabbed her wrist. Let go, Martha struggled, but my hand was like a steel vice. "Sister-in-law," I said emotionlessly. "You should discipline your son better. He is a child, yes, but he cannot be a spoiled brat." "If he touches Ella again," I squeezed my hand. Both Leo and Martha screamed in pain. "Next time, I won't settle for just breaking one leg." Mom, help me!" Martha screamed in terror, calling her mother. Mrs. Peterson finally snapped out of it. She trembled with rage. Her daughter-in-law, the one she beat and insulted daily today, dared to rebel. She dared to touch her daughter and her golden grandson. You are crazy." Mrs. Peterson grabbed a duster nearby. "You've gotten too big for your britches. Today I'm going to beat you to death." She brandished the duster and started hitting my back nonstop. I didn't flinch. My back was accustomed to worse pain in the hospital. Slowly, I let go of Leo and Martha. Mother and son quickly backed away. Mrs. Peterson, seeing that I wasn't reacting, became even bolder. "I'm going to beat the insolence out of you, so you know your place." I slowly straightened up and turned toward her. The duster still hit my shoulders and chest. I raised my hand and grabbed the duster's handle. Mrs. Peterson, surprised, tried to pull it, but it didn't move an inch. I looked at her. She looked at me. In her eyes was anger. In mine, only cold emptiness. I pulled hard. "Mrs. Peterson stumbled forward. I snapped the duster handle in half. Crack. I threw it at her feet. "Starting today," I said, "there are going to be rules in this house." I looked at the panting old woman, the sister-in-law massaging her wrist with a trembling hand, and the cursed nephew whimpering. "It's time for dinner." "What's on the menu tonight, mother-in-law?" Mrs. Peterson, caught between fear and rage, stammered, "Dinner. The rotten cod you brought yesterday from the store. Make a stew with it, very salty and dry, so the money I feed your family with isn't wasted." There it was, the signature dish Emily had told me about, the salty fish stew she was forced to prepare and eat entirely. "Yes, mother-in-law, I'll do that." Leaving behind 3 pairs of stunned eyes, I entered the kitchen. I saw the fish, which smelled rotten, in a bowl. Quite naturally, I cleaned it and put it on to stew. I poured half a package of salt into the pot. I let it cook until the broth completely evaporated and the fish burned black. The smell of salt and burning was unbearable. I set the table a bowl of yesterday's cold rice, a plate of yellowish cooked vegetables, and my masterpiece, the cod stew. "Mother-in-law, sister-in-law, nephew, dinner's ready." Mrs. Peterson, huffing, sat down at the table, took a large piece of fish, and put it in her mouth. Her face changed color in an instant, from red to purple. She spat out the food. "Pa, pa, how salty. It's so salty it's going to kill me. You want to kill me." Calmly, I took a bit of vegetable. "You told me to make it salty and dry. I followed your instructions. Is it to your liking? To my liking? My foot?" She got so angry that she grabbed the hot casserole dish with her hands. "I'm going to smash this dish in your face." Just as she was about to tilt it toward me, bam! I slammed the table hard. The cheap plywood table trembled violently. The plates and cutlery rattled. "Put it down." My voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to startle the whole family. Mrs. Peterson's hand stopped. She looked at me. She saw the gaze of a crazy person. "You're not going to eat?" I lowered my voice. "If you don't eat, it's a waste of food. Do you want me to feed you?" A daughter-in-law must be respectful to her mother-in-law. I stood up and walked around the table. With a large spoon, I took a piece of burnt fish. "Come on, mother-in-law, open your mouth." You, this one is crazy." Mrs. Peterson, terrified, pushed her chair back. With one hand, I grabbed her chin and squeezed hard. Her mouth opened on its own. I shoved the spoonful of fish down her throat. "Eat," I growled. "Taste the flavor my sister Emily had to endure for years. Taste what it means to respect others' work." Mrs. Peterson coughed violently, snot and tears mixing on her face. The salty, hard piece of fish got stuck in her throat. She tried to spit it out, but I held her jaw firmly. "Swallow," I ordered. Martha, the sister-in-law, couldn't stand idly by watching her mother being treated this way. She forgot her fear, and her years of arrogance resurfaced. "Hey, Emily, let go of my mother right now. How dare you force-feed her?" She rushed toward me, ready to scratch my face with her fat, sharp nails. She thought that since I was busy holding the old woman, I wouldn't be prepared. She was wrong. My left hand held Mrs. Peterson's chin, my right hand was free. Without even turning my head, I swung my right hand backward. Smack! It sounded like an explosion. It wasn't the sound of a slap. It was like hitting a piece of meat with a board. Martha froze, staggered. Her enormous body spun and crashed against the wall. Her cheek went from pale to deep red and swelled up. The mark of my 5 fingers was imprinted. Her ears clogged up. Her eyes were wide. She touched her cheek, then looked at my hand. She had a look of disbelief. She, who had spent her whole life hitting and insulting others, was being hit for the first time, and by her sister-in-law, whom she considered trash. It was then that I released Mrs. Peterson's chin. She immediately crawled across the floor to vomit the piece of fish. Slowly, I faced Martha. "Sister-in-law." My voice was like ice. "Does your cheek hurt?" She trembled with fear and humiliation. You dare to hit me? I am your sister-in-law. I only gave you 1 slap." I approached her. She pressed against the wall, backing away. "Do you want to feel what a real beating is like? Like the one you and your mother gave Emily last night? Helping Jake?" I recited exactly what Emily had told me. Martha's face went white as paper. "How? How do you know? I know everything. I smiled. I also know you scratched my sister with a hairbrush and your mother shoved dirty socks in her mouth. Do you want to try it? I looked at a pile of Leo's dirty socks lying in a corner. Martha let out a scream. She knew I wasn't joking. No, no, you are a demon. You are not Emily. She fled and took refuge in her bedroom. The click of the lock sounded. She hid inside, barely able to breathe. Mrs. Peterson, seeing her daughter flee, crawled hastily to her own room and slammed the door shut. Leo, seeing his grandmother and mother being hit, wet himself and, unable to utter a sound, fled behind his mother. The house fell into an eerie silence. Only Ella and I remained, and the salty fish stew still steaming. I turned around. Ella was still sitting in her corner. She wasn't crying, she just stared at me with wide eyes. In her gaze, the initial fear had diminished, giving way to astonishment and strange curiosity. My heart ached. I threw the dirty spoon away and went to the kitchen. I knew these people never ate with Emily and Ella. Emily had told me the old woman always hid the good food in a private fridge for herself. I opened the old refrigerator. Just as expected. Chicken, ham, yogurt, fruit. I took out a cooked chicken drumstick and a yogurt. I also found the fresh rice Emily had hidden for her daughter. I heated it up. I put a generous portion of rice on a clean plate and shredded the chicken over it. I brought it to Ella. Eat, little one. My voice softened. Eat until you're full. From now on, no one will take your food. No one will hit you. I sat beside her. Ella looked at me, trembling. Then she looked at the plate. The smell of chicken was delicious. She was hungry. Carefully, she picked up the spoon, ate one spoonful, and burst into tears. This time it wasn't fear. She sobbed while she ate. I didn't comfort her. I simply sat beside her, stroking her back in silence. Eat, little one. Eat it all. Mommy is here. Ella finished the entire plate of rice and drank the yogurt. When she finished, she looked at me. She hesitated for a moment, then got up and wrapped her arms around my neck. A weak hug, but enough to surprise me. Mommy, the child whispered. Mommy is a little different today. I hugged her back. Mommy simply decided not to be afraid anymore. That night, I slept hugging Ella. The child slept soundly. How long had it been since she had eaten until she was full and felt safe? But I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, listening to the snoring from the next room, the snoring of the husband. He worked the night shift and hadn't returned yet. Oh no, he hadn't arrived yet. Those snores were from the rats in the adjacent room. I was waiting. Emily had told me. The husband, Jake. His shift ended at 11 p.m., and he always returned home completely drunk. Exactly at 11:30 p.m., I heard the sound of a motorcycle engine in the alley, followed by the screech of a sudden stop. Then the sound of stumbling footsteps and a string of curses. Lost again. Lost everything. Open the door. Jake, the monster, was back. Ella, sleeping in my arms, got scared and hid her head in my chest. I calmed her. Quiet, sleep. Mommy is here. I put her in bed and covered her with the blanket. Close your eyes. Cover your ears. Mommy will be done soon. I left the room. Jake saw me. He smiled maliciously. Ah, there you are. Where's the water? I'm thirsty. Bring me water, fast. I remained still, 10 feet away from him, without moving. Jake frowned. His wife usually ran to bring him water just by hearing his voice. Why was she so defiant today? Are you deaf? He yelled. He looked around for something to throw. You're misbehaving today. I'll have to teach you again. He staggered toward me. I lost money today and I'm in a bad mood, so you better obey. He raised his hand. A familiar slap, the same one he had used to educate Emily for the last 7 years, the same one he had used to hit Ella the night before. I'm going to beat you until his thick, hairy arm flew toward me, but stopped in the air. I had grabbed his wrist. Jake was stunned, his eyes wide. He tried to pull free, but couldn't. His wrist was trapped as if in a steel vise. He looked at me, then at my hand holding his wrist. What are you doing? Let go of me. He started to feel that something was wrong. He was drunk, but he wasn't stupid. The weak Emily, the Emily who wouldn't hurt a fly, how could she have such strength? "Let go of me," he yelled, and with his other hand, he launched a punch at my face. It was a drunk's punch, but with enough force to break a normal person's teeth. I still held his wrist firmly. I simply tilted my head, and the punch grazed my ear. Jake was even more perplexed. He had missed. "Darling." My voice was chillingly sweet. "Tired from work, you bitch?" He sensed the danger and tried to break free, but I squeezed harder. Crack. A dry, short sound, the sound of a wrist bone dislocating. Jake let out a scream of pain that sobered him up instantly. "Ah, my hand. What did you do to my hand?" He collapsed. I didn't release him. I lifted him up. "Hitting has become a habit, hasn't it? You are not Emily." "Who are you?" he hissed. "I'm your wife," I smiled. "The same one you loved to smash against the sink." I slapped him. Smack. This was not my sister's slap, it was my slap, a slap charged with 10 years of contained rage. The big man staggered and hit his head against the wall. He fell face down on the floor. His cheek was swollen and bleeding. He was stunned. A woman had hit him. "Mom, Martha, help me," he cried in terror. "Save me, Emily has gone crazy. She's hitting me." In the 2 bedrooms, there was not a sound. Mrs. Peterson and Martha heard him, but neither dared to open the door. They trembled behind their doors despite the screams of their son, their brother. Cowardly rats. Jake realized no one was coming to save him. The pain, the humiliation, and the remaining alcohol transformed into rage, into the madness of a man whose pride had been trampled. "You dare to hit me? I'm going to kill you!" He staggered to his feet like a wounded beast. He lunged at me, trying to crush me with his enormous body. He opened his arms to trap me. I sighed. Too slow. I didn't step back. I stepped forward. When he lunged, I ducked. I grabbed his hair with one hand and yanked hard downward. With the other hand, I closed my fist and delivered a powerful blow to his solar plexus. Thud. A dull impact sounded. Jake bent over at the waist. His eyes rolled back. Saliva and gastric juices came from his mouth. He couldn't even scream anymore, just gasped with his mouth open. I still held him by the hair. "This," I whispered in his ear, "is for Ella." I yanked his head up by the hair. "And this." I slapped him again. Smack. "This is for my sister Emily." I dragged him. He was corpulent, but now he was like a broken sack of potatoes. I dragged him to the bathroom. The narrow, dirty bathroom. "You like holding your wife's head underwater, huh?" I filled the sink with water. I grabbed his hair and plunged his head inside. "Refreshing, darling." Jake writhed like a hog in a slaughterhouse. The dirty sink water bubbled. I held his greasy hair firmly, plunged his head into the water, gave him a second to breathe, and shoved it back in. "Refreshing, darling," I whispered. My voice was chillingly sweet. "Is the water cold? You loved dunking Emily's head, didn't you? You heard her pleas, you saw her despair." Gulp, gulp, help, help. He could barely articulate a word before the water filled his mouth again. I yanked his head up. His face was pale, his eyes wide, snot, saliva, and sewer water streamed down him. He trembled. The drunkenness had vanished, leaving only absolute terror. He looked at me as if seeing a ghost. The big man, the one who a moment ago threatened to kill me, was now huddled and had wet himself. The smell of urine was unbearable. I frowned. Gross. I let go. Jake fell onto the bathroom floor, coughing and vomiting. He vomited alcohol, food, even bile. I looked down at him with cold disgust. I looked at him, then at my hands. For 10 years, I used these hands to read and exercise. Now, I use them to clean up trash. I left the man whimpering like a dying dog and exited the bathroom. I heard the doors of Mrs. Peterson and Martha's rooms opening slightly and slamming shut. They had seen everything. Good. The more they saw, the more afraid they would be. I went into the kitchen. I saw the pot with the salty fish stew that Mrs. Peterson had vomited earlier. An idea came to mind, a dark but very satisfying idea. Emily had told me Mrs. Peterson was the ringleader, the brain. Jake was just the muscle. To stop a dog from biting, you break its teeth. But to stop a dog from being loyal to its master, you must make it fear and despise its master. I looked around the house. In a dirty corner Emily called the laundry room, I found a plastic basin full of sour-smelling dirty clothes. Emily hadn't washed their clothes since yesterday. On top of everything was a pair of Mrs. Peterson's old panties. A smile crept onto my mouth. I turned the stove back on, put water in a large pot, and used a stick to pick up the panties and put them in the pot. I set them to boil, bubbling vigorously. A horrendous smell began to rise, worse than the sewer. Meanwhile, Jake had crawled out of the bathroom. He dragged himself to Mrs. Peterson's bedroom door. "Mom, Mom, help me. That one is crazy, Mom." The door remained closed. Inside, Mrs. Peterson trembled. Go away, don't come near. If you're crazy, die alone." Jake froze. His mother, the mother he had always protected, the mother who had encouraged him to hit his wife, now abandoned him. He turned toward me. He saw me stirring a special broth. He didn't understand what I was doing. I ladled a bowl of broth from the pot, a thick yellowish broth. I placed the bowl in front of Jake. "Drink." He looked at it blankly. "What? What is this?" "Medicine," I said. "A medicine to cure abusive husbands. A medicine to cure ungrateful sons. A medicine to cure the illness of hitting your wife because your mother tells you to. Drink, darling." He looked at the bowl and smelled it. His face went white as paper. He understood. No, you are a demon." He crawled backward. "A demon?" I laughed. Compared to dunking a woman's head in water, slapping a 3-year-old child, and forcing someone to eat garbage, this is very humane. I grabbed his hair and tilted his head back. "I told you," I growled, "there must be rules in this house. First rule, you reap what you sow. Your mother sowed the seed, so you, her son, must eat the fruit. Drink." I opened his mouth and poured the hideous broth down his throat. He writhed and tried to vomit, but I held him tight. He had to swallow, sip by sip. The door to Mrs. Peterson's room burst open. She stood there. She saw her panties in the pot. She saw her son drinking the water they had been boiled in. Her eyes rolled back. "Oh my God! Oh my God! You!" Jake vomited violently, this time up bile. Mrs. Peterson looked at her son, then at me. There was no more malice in her, only terror. She staggered and fainted. Perfect, one less. I looked at Jake, who was convulsing. "See? Your mother fainted. Now get to your room. If I hear a single moan from you tonight, I will make you drink the water from that whole basin of dirty laundry." Jake, with his last strength born of terror, crawled to his bedroom. The house was finally silent. The next morning, the house was silent as a tomb. I got up early and bathed Ella. I took delicious food from Mrs. Peterson's refrigerator and prepared a hearty breakfast for the two of us. Sautéed beef, fried eggs. Ella ate eagerly. The light began to return to her eyes. No noise came from the 2 bedrooms. Mrs. Peterson, Martha, and Jake, the 3 demons of yesterday, were like 3 dead rats. They didn't even dare to poke their heads out. I didn't care. I fed Ella and put on cartoons for her. Around 9 a.m., there was a loud, decisive knock on the door. "Who is it?" I asked. "Police. Open the door." I smiled. How fast? I opened the door. 2 police officers, one older and one younger, stood before me. They had serious expressions. The younger officer looked at me. I still had Emily's old bruises. "Are you Jake's wife, Emily?" "Yes, I am. We received a complaint from Jake. He accuses you of brutally assaulting him." Just then, Jake crawled out of the room. He looked pathetic, his face swollen, one cheek bruised, and his wrist bandaged. He walked with a limp, feigning great pain. Seeing the police, he shouted as if he had seen a savior. "Here, officers, look! She hit me." He pointed to his face. She and he hesitated, unable to recount the humiliating scene of the night before. "She's crazy. She's the sister of that lunatic who was in the psychiatric hospital. Her craziness has rubbed off. Arrest her, lock her up." Mrs. Peterson and Martha also peeked out stealthily to support the story. "It's true, officer. She hit her husband, her mother-in-law, and her sister-in-law. Look." Martha pointed to her still swollen cheek. The older officer frowned. He looked alternately at the stocky Jake and at me, small and thin but strongly built. "Mrs. Emily," he asked in a serious voice, "is what these people are saying true? Did you assault them?" I didn't deny it. "Yes, officer," I said in a calm, mournful voice. "I assaulted them." Jake's and the two women's eyes shone. "See? She confessed. Arrest her." "But," I continued, "I did it in self-defense. My husband, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law hit me." "Lies," Jake shouted. "When have I ever hit you?" I looked at the older officer. "Officer," he said, "my husband is accusing me of assault. May I ask what an assault is?" The younger officer snapped. "You left your husband's face like that and you say it's not assault?" "Yes," I nodded. "Then, if a husband hits his wife until she is covered in bruises, holds her head under water, and swells her face, can that also be called assault?" The older officer paused. He was starting to understand the situation. "You mean I mean this?" I went into the room and took out a stack of papers. It was what Emily had gathered in her desperation. She had brought it to the hospital yesterday, and I had kept it. I placed it on the table. "This is my medical report from 3 months ago. Broken ribs." The doctor concluded it was from a strong impact. I pulled out a photo. "This is my face from 2 months ago. Broken nose. My husband said I fell alone." I pulled out a pile of injury reports. "These are bruises on my arms, on my back, belt marks, scratches. There are a lot, officers. I've been living here for 7 years, 7 years receiving beatings. Who do I complain to? If I tell the neighbors, they say it's marital disputes. And if I go to the station, the officers tell me to settle it between us." I looked Jake directly in the eyes. He was trembling. I rolled up my sleeve and showed Emily's old bruises. "Look, this injury is from the day before yesterday. My husband hit my daughter in the face, and when I tried to stop him, he dragged me to the bathroom and held my head under water. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law helped him hold me down." The 2 police officers were stunned. They looked at me, and then at the 3 demons. "I endured 7 years," I said. My voice trembled with indignation. I was playing the role of Emily. "Yesterday, my husband came home drunk, kicked down the door, threw things, and tried to hit me and my daughter. I couldn't take it anymore, and without realizing it, I reacted. I looked at Jake. I hit my husband once, but he has hit me thousands of times. I ask you, officers." I turned to the 2 police officers. "If a husband can hit his wife and not be arrested, isn't it a domestic matter for a wife to hit her husband?" The older officer sighed. He had dealt with too many cases like this. He turned to Jake. His voice became sharp. "Jake, look at you, how big you are, and your wife so small. You leave her face like that, and now that she hit you back, you call us to arrest her?" But she," Jake was speechless. "But nothing." The older officer slammed the table. "With this stack of reports, if I open a case, you're the one going to jail. Domestic violence, aggravated assault charge. Do you want to go to jail?" Jake's face turned ashen. "I'm warning this family." The officer pointed to the 3. "Live like decent people. Don't make us come back here. Next time, there won't just be a warning." He turned to me and said in a gentler voice, "Mrs. Emily, if that man hits you again, come straight to the station with these reports. We will handle it. Understood?" "Yes." "Thank you, officer." I bowed my head and sobbed. The 2 police officers left. Jake, Mrs. Peterson, and Martha stood there, stunned. They looked at me. In their eyes, there was now a mixture of fear and hatred. They realized the law was not on their side. And I knew they wouldn't stop. They would use other methods. Jake had been humiliatingly defeated. Throughout that day, the house returned to silence. But it wasn't the silence of a tomb, but the calm before the storm. I heard whispers, hushed voices, and low curses coming from Mrs. Peterson's room. The 3 of them, a limping Jake, a swollen-faced Martha, and a stunned Mrs. Peterson were plotting. I could smell their scheme in the air. I knew, without needing to hear it, what they were planning. They couldn't defeat me by force. They couldn't use the police. So what method would they use? Of course, they would use my crazy label. "That one is crazy," I overheard Mrs. Peterson's voice. "It's not Emily, it's Lucy, the crazy one from the hospital. She escaped. She's impersonating her sister. Jake nodded. It's true, Emily is weak as a snail. How could she have that kind of strength? How could she do something like that? It has to be her crazy sister. Martha trembled. Oh my God, no wonder she was so evil. She did that to my brother. Shut up, Mrs. Peterson snapped. Don't mention that again. If the neighbors find out, we'll be covered in shame. Now what do we do, Mom? Jake asked. We can't live with a crazy person. She might kill us all. Mrs. Peterson was silent for a moment. I heard her pacing back and forth. Then she lowered her voice. What is crazy must return to its place. The plan began to form in that old, wicked head. We can't catch her ourselves, but the psychiatric hospital can. But we can't just call an ambulance to take her away. She's strong as a bull, and she will fight back. And what if she tells them everything? We have to weaken her. Weaken her. Martha's voice sounded sharp, something like sleeping pills like in the soap operas in the soup. Exactly. Mrs. Peterson clapped her hands. We give her a large dose of sleeping pills, so she sleeps like a log. And then we tie her up tight. After that, we call Peaceful Haven and report that patient Lucy has escaped. She's at our house, and we've subdued her. They'll come for her right away. But what if she doesn't drink it? Jake worried. She hasn't eaten with us since yesterday. She won't eat, but her daughter will. Mrs. Peterson smiled maliciously. Tonight, we'll pretend to make peace. I'll apologize. I'll prepare a delicious dinner. I'll tell her Mom was wrong, that we're a family again. She's smart. She won't believe it, Martha said. Even if she doesn't believe it, she'll have to pretend she does, Mrs. Peterson said. And we'll put the drug in a separate soup, a chicken soup. We'll tell her we prepared it so our granddaughter Ella can get strong. Do you think she won't give it to her daughter? If Ella doesn't eat it, she'll have to eat it herself. She won't be able to refuse her mother-in-law's kindness. My heart froze for an instant. Damn beasts. Daring to use Ella. That night was just as I expected, a strangely abundant dinner. Roast chicken, croquettes. Jake and Martha, with their bruised faces, sat in silence. Mrs. Peterson had done a complete 180. Smiling, she said, Emily, come sit and eat. She served me a chicken drumstick. What happened yesterday was my fault. I'm sorry. I'm old and forgive me. Martha also said in a whisper, Sister-in-law, I'm sorry too. Please forgive me. Seeing the circus in front of me, I also smiled. Yes, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, I don't hold grudges either. We are family. Jake, seeing my docility, sighed in relief. Eat, Mrs. Peterson said. This afternoon I made some chicken soup. It's delicious. I made it especially for Ella. The child is so thin lately. She brought a small bowl of steaming soup. She placed it in front of me and Ella. You give it to the child. Ella's eyes lit up when she saw the soup. I looked at Mrs. Peterson. She was smiling, but her eyes were not. Those eyes stared at me, waiting. I took a spoonful of soup. It looks delicious. Thank you, mother-in-law. I lifted the spoon. Ella opened her mouth, waiting. I stopped. Oh, it's hot, I smiled. Mommy will cool it by blowing. I blew, and then feigned a mistake. Splat. The bowl of hot soup spilled onto the floor. Oh no, I exclaimed, pretending to be surprised. Mother-in-law, I'm sorry. How clumsy of me. I spilled all the delicious soup you prepared. Ella started crying out of sadness. The faces of the three demons changed in an instant, from hope to disappointment, and then to extreme rage. Jake clenched his fists under the table, but they couldn't do anything. No, it's nothing. Mrs. Peterson forced a crooked smile. If it spilled, it spilled. I'll prepare another one. No need, mother-in-law, I said hurriedly. I'm already full with the food. You, sister-in-law, eat. And you, darling, eat a lot. Eat a lot and get strong. The dinner ended. Their first plot had failed. I knew they wouldn't give up. They would try another method. They had lost patience. Since they couldn't trick me with poison, they decided to use force. That night, I went to bed hugging Ella. I didn't fall asleep. I never sleep deeply. My 10 years in the hospital taught me to be alert 24 hours a day. In the middle of the night, I heard a creak stealthy footsteps. I closed my eyes and pretended to be sound asleep. I breathed evenly. My bedroom door opened slightly without a sound. 3 shadows. Jake, Mrs. Peterson, and Martha. Jake was in front. In his hands, although both were bandaged, he held a thick rope, a rope for tying packages. Martha carried duct tape, and Mrs. Peterson a towel, to gag me, I suppose. They approached the bed stealthily. They thought I was sleeping. They thought I was still the weak Emily. "She's sound asleep," Jake whispered. Now, the 3 of them lunged. Jake threw the rope. Mrs. Peterson rushed to cover my mouth, and Martha to hold down my legs. Too slow. The instant the rope touched the blanket, I sat up. I didn't just sit up. I jumped like a panther. I didn't go for Jake. He was big but useless. I went for the weakest one, Martha. I delivered a double kick to her stomach. Bam! Ah! The corpulent Martha was sent flying backward and crashed into the wall. She couldn't even scream. She collapsed with her mouth open. Mrs. Peterson froze. The towel fell from her hands. Jake also stopped. In just 1 second, I grabbed the cheap ceramic lamp from the nightstand. I smashed it hard against Jake's head. Crash! Jake screamed and covered his head. Blood started to flow. He hadn't expected me to defend myself so brutally. You. While he was stunned, I was already behind Mrs. Peterson. I wrapped my arm around her neck, using her as a shield. "Jake!" I yelled. "One more step, and I break your mother's neck." Jake froze. Blood streamed down his face. He looked at me and at his mother writhing in my arms. Ella woke up then and burst into terrified tears. "Silence," I yelled. "Everyone in this house shut up." Jake was terrified. No, don't touch my mother. What do you want? What do I want?" I laughed. "What were you going to do with the rope? Tie me up." I dragged Mrs. Peterson. I picked up the rope from the floor. Good idea. I pushed Mrs. Peterson forcefully toward Jake. "Go." She fell into her son's arms. I approached. Jake, covering his head and holding his mother, backed away. He was afraid of me. You me. What?" I raised the rope. "You like playing hide and seek? Okay, I'll play with you." Martha finally groaned. "Help! Help! Shut up!" I yelled. "Everyone get out to the living room right now." I herded them like a flock of ducks. The big man, the fat sister-in-law, the wicked mother-in-law. The 3 terrified people were led to the living room by a small, thin woman. "Sit down," I pointed to the couch. They sat, trembling. "Jake," I called him. Yes. He was shaking like a leaf. "You are my husband, right? A husband must sleep with his wife." I smiled. "Go into the bedroom." He didn't understand. But, "Go in." I pushed Jake into our bedroom. Ella was crying on the bed. "Little one, come outside." I picked her up and took her to the living room. "Watch TV with Grandma and Aunt. Don't come in here." I left her outside. I slammed the bedroom door shut and locked it from the inside. Now it was just Jake and me. He backed away. What are you going to do to me?" "The same thing you were going to do to me." I raised the rope and lunged at him. Jake tried to resist, but his head was wounded. He was stunned, and the hand he injured yesterday still hurt. I threw him onto the bed. I used the techniques I learned at the hospital to subdue patients having attacks. In 5 minutes, Jake was tied hand and foot. His hands and feet were firmly tied to the 4 corners of the bed. He couldn't move, only stare at me with wide eyes. "My sister Emily says," I whispered in his ear, "that you like using the whip, that you like rough play." I looked around the room and found his leather belt. No, please, I'm sorry, I beg you." He started crying, a violent man crying and begging. I didn't care. I grabbed a rag and stuffed it in his mouth. "Shh, quiet. The show is about to start." I left Jake tied hand and foot in the bed with a gag in his mouth that only allowed him to emit a desperate "mmph." I turned off the light. The room was dark. I opened the door and left. In the living room, Mrs. Peterson and Martha were huddled on the couch. The 2 wicked women now looked pathetic. Seeing me come out, both startled, and And Jake? Mrs. Peterson stammered. What did you do to him? I put on a terrified face. Daughters, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, something terrible has happened. Jake, I tricked him and tied him to the bed. The two women froze. I used up all my strength. I seduced him into letting me tie him up, but he is so strong that he's about to break the ropes. I gave a masterful performance. I pretended to be scared. If he breaks free, he'll kill me. He'll kill us all. Mrs. Peterson and Martha looked at each other. They weren't stupid. They doubted. Is it true? Martha asked suspiciously. Did you really tie him up? I nodded. But I can't hold him. Come and help me. He insulted me. And you two too. He said that when he gets loose, he'll beat us all senseless. He's crazy. The doubt in the eyes of the two women slowly turned into a malicious glint. They hated me, but they also feared Jake, and they hated the humiliation he had put them through. If Jake was really tied up, this was their chance, a chance to vent, to teach him and me a lesson. They wouldn't think that Jake was tied up and go in to hit him, or they might think that I was the one tied up. I had to make sure. I tied him up, but he's too strong, I repeated. Tied up? Mrs. Peterson stood up. You mean tied to the bed? Yes, hold him tight, she said. Her eyes gleamed. I'm going to teach him a lesson. How dare that cursed one scare his own mother? Ah, it turned out she also hated her useless son, Jake, who had brought her disgrace. She wanted to take the opportunity to tame him again. No, this scenario isn't fun. I have to change it. I have to make them think the one in the bed is me. I shook my head. No, that's not right. I tricked him, but he tied me up. I said the opposite. What? The two women were perplexed. I screamed. Jake is so strong that he caught me and tied me to the bed. He wants to kill me. Mother-in-law, sister-in-law, help me. He just hit his head and he's not in his right mind. Now he's looking for a knife. Yes, this scenario was more credible. Mrs. Peterson and Martha's faces lit up. The daughter-in-law tied up, the crazy son looking for a knife. This was an opportunity straight from heaven. She's tied up, Martha sneered. Great, good. Where is she tied? Mrs. Peterson asked. Her hands trembled with excitement. In the bedroom. Very tight. I can't move. I sobbed. Mom! Martha turned to Mrs. Peterson. It's our chance. Let's beat that bitch senseless to remove her insolence. Yes, Mrs. Peterson nodded. She dares to hit me and make my son drink that garbage? She gritted her teeth. Get a stick. Today I'll beat her to death. Martha ran to the kitchen and brought back a hard wooden mop handle. Mrs. Peterson grabbed a bamboo laundry pole. The room is dark, I said, trembling. Better dark, Martha said triumphantly. That way we hit her without her knowing who it was. The two women, armed and bloodthirsty, headed toward the bedroom. I backed away and hid in a corner. I grabbed my cell phone. I turned on video recording mode. The red light flashed. Open the door, Mrs. Peterson ordered. I opened the door, trembling. Mother-in-law, sister-in-law, help me. I groaned. Help you? Ask for help in hell. The two women rushed into the dark room. They only saw the silhouette of a tied person on the bed who writhed and emitted an oomph. They thought it was me. Die, crazy bitch. Martha was the first to act. She raised the mop handle and, with all her strength, began to mercilessly beat the figure on the bed. Bam! 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 You dare to hit me? You dare to slap me? Mrs. Peterson was not far behind. With the bamboo pole, she hit the legs and sides. I'm going to beat the insolence out of you so you know who runs this house. Bam! Whack! Bam! The sound of sticks against flesh. The sound of bones. I think I heard the sound of bones breaking. Jake, gagged, couldn't scream, only emit a choked moan. Ugh, ugh. But the more he moaned, the more the two women believed it was me suffering, and the more they indulged themselves. Scream! Scream louder! I'll show you how to shut up. I stood clearly at the door, recording. After about 5 minutes of recording, I saw that Jake was no longer writhing. He lay still. I thought it was enough. I entered and turned on the light. The cold white fluorescent light flooded the room. Mrs. Peterson and Martha stopped with the sticks in their hands. They blinked and saw that the person tied in the bed, bloody and gagged, was Jake, their son, their brother. "Ah!" Martha was the first to scream. She dropped the stick and backed away, her face pale as paper. Mrs. Peterson was stunned. She looked at Jake, and then at me. I was standing in the doorway with the cell phone in my hand, the red recording light still blinking. "They hit well, mother-in-law," I smiled. "Hit harder? I have it all recorded. You and your sister-in-law just committed an aggravated assault, an organized crime with weapons against your own son and brother." I lifted the cell phone. "With this video, I can say that Jake kidnapped me and that you, trying to rescue me, mistook the person. Will the police believe that?" Mrs. Peterson staggered and collapsed. This time, she didn't faint. She wet herself. The room filled with the smell of Mrs. Peterson's urine, Jake's moans in bed, and Martha's terrified breathing. Calmly, I put the cell phone in my pocket. I patted Martha's pale cheek. "Sister-in-law, if you're done hitting, now you should call an ambulance for the victim. I think you broke your brother's bones." Martha startled and stammered. You ordered me to. You set a trap for me." "I set a trap for you?" I laughed. "It's true I tied up Jake, but I asked for your help, to come hold him down. I didn't know you would bring sticks and gang beat him. I didn't order you to hit him. You did it voluntarily and with great enthusiasm." I turned to Mrs. Peterson. She was still on the floor. "Mother-in-law, now what? Should we call 911 first or the hospital?" I didn't wait for her answer and took out my cell phone. First, I called 911. "Hello, police department. This is Emily from 123 Elm Street. I'm calling to report an emergency. A serious assault just occurred in my house. The victim is my husband, Jake, and the attackers are his own mother and sister, Mrs. Peterson and Martha. They beat him with sticks, and I think they broke his bones. Come quickly. I'm afraid they'll kill him." I hung up, leaving the two women stunned, and then I called the paramedics. "Hello, 911. I need an ambulance at this address. The patient suffered a gang assault. I suspect broken ribs and head trauma." When I finished the calls, I dragged a chair to the center of the living room, right in front of the bedroom door, and sat down. I crossed my arms and waited. Mrs. Peterson finally reacted. She realized what she had done and started screaming, "Crazy bitch, demon, you ruined my family." She tried to lunge at me. I simply raised the cell phone. "Hit me more, mother-in-law. Hit me too, and make it a combo. That way, when the police come, they take you all together." She stopped. Martha staggered up, ran to the room, and shook Jake. Brother, react. Don't scare me." Sirens sounded. A police car and an ambulance arrived almost simultaneously. The narrow alley lit up with blue and red lights in the middle of the night. The neighbors, accustomed to the screams from this house, peeked out curiously. The same two police officers from yesterday appeared again, this time accompanied by two backup officers. "Who is Mrs. Emily?" the older officer asked seriously. "I am." I stepped forward. "What happened? Another fight?" "No." I shook my head. It wasn't me. They fought among themselves. The paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. When they illuminated Jake with their flashlights, they too were stunned. The big man was now a bloody, disheveled heap, still tied up. "What? What happened here?" the younger officer exclaimed in horror. "Who tied this man up?" "I did," I said calmly. "He tried to hit me, and I tied him up. It was self-defense." "And after tying him up, what did you do?" "Nothing," I said. "I simply went out to ask my mother-in-law and sister-in-law for help. I told them Jake was tied up and to come help me." "Lies!" Martha shouted from the room. "You tricked us. You said you were tied up." I shrugged. "Now she can say whatever she wants. I have proof, Jake." At that moment, after an officer cut the ropes with a knife, he whispered weakly, "My side hurts. Mom, Martha, they hit me." He pointed at the two women with his finger and passed out. The paramedics quickly transferred him to the vehicle. One of them told the police, "He's serious. He has at least 2 broken ribs and a head injury." The older police officer turned around. "Mrs. Peterson, Miss Martha, what happened here? She tricked us." Mrs. Peterson started acting, crying loudly. "She's a crazy person. She escaped from the hospital. She tricked us into hitting my son. Officer, she is the instigator." "Yes," I nodded. "I'm crazy." "Are you going to believe me? Or would you prefer to see this?" I turned on my cell phone and played the video. The 4 police officers and the backup agents crowded to watch. They saw the dark room clearly. They heard my moan. "Mother-in-law, sister-in-law, help me." And they also heard the curses of the 2 women. "Die, crazy bitch. You dare to hit me? I'll show you how to shut up." They clearly saw Martha mercilessly hitting with the mop handle and Mrs. Peterson mercilessly hitting with the bamboo pole. The older officer's face went from seriousness to an ashen color. He had been on the force for decades, but such a brutal scene of a mother and sister hitting their own son and brother surpassed his imagination. He turned off the video. Enough. He turned to the 2 women with a face cold as ice. "Mrs. Peterson, Miss Martha, we have the video as evidence. We also have the victim's testimony, Jake. Both of you are going to have to accompany us to the station." "I'm not going. I'm innocent. She tricked me." Martha struggled. "Whether you are innocent or not, you will declare at the station." The young officer pulled out the handcuffs. "Officers, help me." Mrs. Peterson, seeing the handcuffs, went pale and fainted. Really fainted. "No problem. The paramedics are right there," the older officer said. "Put her in the ambulance and wake her up. When she wakes up, bring her to the station." It was chaos. Martha was taken away screaming and cursing, disturbing the entire alley. Mrs. Peterson was taken away on a stretcher like a sack of potatoes. The neighbors muttered and watched. My God, at the Petersons' house, the mother and daughter beat the son. How awful. And the daughter-in-law was so good. Karma is karma. I stood in the doorway watching them with Ella in my arms. The child had fallen asleep at some point. I smiled. Justice is sometimes quite effective. The next morning, the house was strangely silent. Jake was in the hospital. Mrs. Peterson and Martha were in the holding cell. According to news from the police station, the felony charge of aggravated assault with clear evidence meant the 2 women would be detained for at least 7 days for investigation. They could only get out if the victim, Jake, withdrew the complaint. But right now, Jake would probably prefer to be in the hospital than to return home. Thus, in this hellish house, only Ella and I remained, and Martha's son Leo. The boy slept in his mother's room. In the chaos of last night, no one had worried about him. He woke up in the morning and saw that neither his grandmother, his mother, nor his Uncle Jake were around. He came out and saw me preparing breakfast for Ella. "Where's my mother?" he asked with his usual arrogance. "And Grandma? Why are you making fried eggs?" "That's mine." He tried to lunge at the table. Ella, seeing Leo, instinctively flinched and hugged her plate. I put down the frying pan, turned around, and stood in front of Leo. "Good morning, Leo," I said calmly. "Move! Where is my mother?" he yelled. "You hit my mother. I'll tell Grandma. Grandma will beat you to death." I crouched down to his height. "Leo, listen to me well." I no longer called him nephew, but used a firmer tone. "The police took your mother and your grandmother away." Leo stopped. "Liar. You're crazy. I'm not lying." I looked him directly in the eyes. "Your mother and your grandmother did something bad. They took sticks and hit your Uncle Jake until they broke his bones. That's why the police came, put handcuffs on them, and took them away. Now they have to be in jail." Leo's arrogant expression transformed into bewilderment, and then into fear. No matter how spoiled a child is, without adult protection, he is very weak. "No, you're lying." "My mother and my grandmother," he started whimpering. "They are in jail because they did something bad. Like you." "Me? What did I do wrong?" he shouted, his neck veins bulging. "You abused Ella," I said in a still calm voice. "You took her toys, pushed her, spit on her plate, and pulled her hair, didn't you?" Leo backed away. He was scared. He didn't understand how I knew. "You also did wrong because you imitated the adults. You saw your grandmother, your mother, and your uncle abuse me and Ella. And you thought you also had the right to abuse Ella." I pointed to Ella. But look, what wrong has Ella done to you? Ella is smaller and weaker than you. Why did you hit her? Leo drooped and lowered his head. Your mother and grandmother are in jail for doing bad things. Do you want them to take you away too? Do you want to go to jail? No, no, he shook his head in terror. No, I don't want to. Good. I stood up. Then, starting today, you are going to relearn how to be a person. I led him in front of Ella. Ella was still scared. Apologize to Ella, I ordered. Leo hesitated. Years of bad habits are not corrected in an instant. I frowned. Or, do you want me to call the police from yesterday again? He hurried to say, looking at Ella, I'm sorry. To whom are you apologizing? Speak clearly. I'm sorry, Ella. Still wrong. I shook my head. You are the older cousin, and Ella is the younger. But in this house, Ella and I have suffered many injustices, and Ella has been very scared. Starting today, you will call Ella Queen Ella. What? Leo was perplexed. Queen Ella. And you are Sir Leo. What is a knight's mission? Leo stammered. Protect. Exactly. Protect the queen, I said. Come on, Sir Leo. Apologize to Queen Ella for scaring her yesterday. Leo, although he feared me, seemed to find this game of queen and knight quite cool. He took a deep breath. Queen Ella, Sir Leo asks for your majesty's forgiveness. Ella was surprised, looked at me, at Leo, and then burst out laughing, a clear, crystalline laugh that echoed in this house for the first time. Leo, seeing the queen laugh, felt a little less scared. Good, I nodded. Now, Sir Leo, take a plate and have breakfast. When you finish, you will play together. The knight must yield his toys to the queen. Understood? Yes. Yes. Leo obediently took a plate. I served him food. While he ate, he glanced at Ella. I know it's not easy to change a child, but at least I had planted a seed, the seed of respect and fear. Sometimes, before teaching kindness to someone, you must first make them feel fear. A week passed. The house, for the first time, had a sense of home. I made Leo clean his own room. I prepared decent meals. Ella laughed and spoke again. She and Leo could play together under my supervision. Leo, the spoiled child, now knew to yield his toys to the queen. On the 8th day, Jake was discharged from the hospital. He returned home limping, with a bandage on his head, a cast on his ribs, and his arm in a sling. He returned silently. Seeing me reading in the living room, he startled and froze in the doorway, not daring to enter. Come in, darling, I said without looking up from the book. What are you afraid of? It's your house. Jake entered trembling, looked around. The house was spotless. His daughter Ella, watching TV, had gained weight and had better color. His nephew Leo was coloring beside her. Queen Ella. Sir Leo is hungry, Leo said. Knight, wait a bit. Her Majesty is finishing watching these cartoons, Ella replied cheerfully. Jake's eyes widened. He didn't understand what was happening. He limped to his room and closed the door. He didn't dare to provoke me. He now knew he was the most useless being in the house. Beaten by me, beaten by his mother and sister, he could no longer hold his head high. 2 days later, after completing their 7 days of detention, Mrs. Peterson and Martha were released. Not because they were innocent, they were released because Jake withdrew the complaint. He was afraid. Afraid of having to live alone with me if his mother and sister went to jail. He thought it was better to bring back those 2 fiends than to face me, the demon. The 2 women returned looking pathetic. 7 days in the holding cell had been hell for them, who had never known hardship. Their hair was greasy, their clothes smelled bad, their arrogance and malice had disappeared, leaving only fatigue, fear, and a hidden hatred. They saw me and kept silent. They saw the huddled Jake, and they also kept silent. No one spoke to each other. This family was now completely broken. That night, I was tucking Ella into bed. My bedroom door opened, and Jake, Mrs. Peterson, and Martha entered, limping. I put a finger to my lips and said, "Shh, the child is sleeping." I went out to the living room and sat in a chair. What is it? Jake, Mrs. Peterson, and Martha looked at each other, and then something happened that I never would have expected. Mrs. Peterson, that wicked mother-in-law, knelt down. "Mom, Jake and Martha exclaimed, stunned. "Quiet," she snapped. She raised her head and looked at me. Her cloudy eyes were now full of tiredness, humiliation, and supplication. "Emily or Lucy," she said in a hoarse voice. "I don't care who you are. I beg you. Please, I implore you." Martha, seeing her mother kneeling, burst into tears and knelt down too. "Sister-in-law, I beg you. Please save this family." Jake, with his broken ribs, couldn't kneel, but he bowed as much as he could. "Forgive me. I'll give you a divorce. Please leave. We will give you whatever you want, but please leave." The entire family that had tormented my sister for 7 years was now begging me on their knees to disappear from their lives. Seeing them, I felt more emptiness than satisfaction. "All right," I said. "We will divorce." Hearing the word divorce, the three sighed in relief, like condemned prisoners receiving a pardon. Mrs. Peterson hastened to say, "Yes, yes, divorce. Tomorrow we'll arrange the papers. You pack your bags and leave." "I leave?" I arched an eyebrow. "Mother-in-law, do you think it's that simple?" I stood up and started walking. My sister Emily married into this house 7 years ago. 7 years working like a mule. 7 years receiving beatings and insults. Your daughter Ella, at 3 years old, has been slapped, starved, and abused. And now, you think a simple divorce ends everything? Then what do you want? Jake asked, trembling. "Money." "Is it money?" "Yes, money," I said firmly. "Let's end this cleanly with money. We are no longer family." I held up 3 fingers. "First, child support. Ella is 3 years old, and Emily will raise her until she is 18. That's 15 years remaining. You are the father. You have a responsibility. How much?" Jake said weakly. "Emily doesn't ask for much. $2,000 a month for food, school, and medical expenses." I calculated mentally. $2,000 a month for 12 months. For 15 years, that's $360,000. Let's make it $320,000, payable in one lump sum. "Sanbei." "IMs. Sanbei." $320,000, Martha shouted. "You are a thief. Where are we going to get that money?" I ignored her and held up 2 more fingers. "Second, marital assets. When they married, my parents gave Emily $100,000. Emily gave it all to you, mother-in-law, to pay off the mortgage on this house. Now that you are divorcing, that money must be returned, plus $30,000 my sister earned working for 7 years, totaling $130,000. Adding that up is $450,000. You might as well kill us," Mrs. Peterson shouted. "There isn't that much money in this house. You are cornering us." "Cornering?" I smiled coldly. "Compared to what you did to Emily, this is very humane." I raised another finger. "And finally, third, compensation for emotional distress. 7 years of assault, drowning attempts, fractures, subhuman insults, the price of that pain." I looked Mrs. Peterson directly in the eyes. $100,000, I concluded. Child support of $320,000, return of house money $130,000, compensation for emotional distress $100,000. Total $550,000 and divorce papers signed by Jake. If you give me all that, Ella and I will disappear from this house. $550,000. The 3 seemed to have received an electric shock. "You are crazy. Just kill us," Jake shouted. "I'd rather go to jail. There is no money." "You don't have money?" I laughed. "You may not have money for the daughter-in-law and granddaughter, but you do have hidden money for the daughter. Right, mother-in-law?" "Mrs. Peterson startled. "What? What are you saying? You don't understand me?" I walked toward her. When your husband died in a workplace accident, he received a compensation payout from the company, didn't he? A very large sum, $800,000, correct?" Jake and Martha looked at Mrs. Peterson, stunned. "Mom," Martha stammered. $800,000? What money, Mrs. Peterson? Did you have money?" Jake was also perplexed. "Shut up. Everyone shut up." Mrs. Peterson was terrified. She's talking nonsense. She's making it up." I'm making it up? I laughed. You have it very well hidden. You can't even put it in the bank for fear your children will find out. You wrapped it in 7 layers of plastic, put it in a jar, and hid it in the kitchen woodpile among the firewood, didn't you? Mrs. Peterson's face went white as paper. Jake and Martha didn't say anything. They quietly got up, looked at each other, and ran toward the kitchen woodpile. I heard banging and things falling. A few minutes later, Martha came down. In her hands, a soot-covered jar. Trembling, she overturned it on the floor. Money. Lots of money. Wads of $100 bills carefully wrapped in plastic. "Mom," Martha trembled. "Money. It's real money." Jake looked at the pile of money and then at Mrs. Peterson. "Mom, you hid the money from me? You let me go into debt up to my neck, lose money gambling, while you had $800,000? Old hag!" Jake shouted furiously. "Smack!" Martha slapped Jake. "Shut up. So what if Mom gave it to me? What are you? An abuser? You dare to hit me?" Jake also went crazy. "I'm going to beat you, bitch!" The two lunged at each other, hitting, scratching, and cursing. Mrs. Peterson collapsed, crying, "Oh, my family is ruined. My children are fighting over money." I observed the second part of the family drama, this time over money. I coughed. Ahem. The three stopped. I pointed to the pile of money. $550,000. "I give you 3 days. Prepare the money and the divorce papers. If not, I raise the cell phone." This video of the mother-in-law and sister-in-law hitting Jake and this happy family story, I will broadcast it throughout the neighborhood, the city council, and the online newspapers. The choice is yours. 3 days later, I received $550,000 in cash, carefully stored in a suitcase, and the divorce papers signed by Jake. The three had faces full of bruises. It seemed the war over the remaining money, after my cut of the $800,000, had been very intense in the last 3 days. "Here is the money, and here are the papers," Mrs. Peterson said in a tired voice. Now leave, disappear from our sight." Without saying a word, I counted the money and kept the papers. I went back to the room and collected Ella's things, which I had prepared the day before, a small suitcase. "Ella," I picked up the girl, "say goodbye to this place. We are going to find Mommy." Ella, although confused, was happy. She hugged me tightly. "Yes, let's go find Mommy Emily." I took Ella in my arms and the suitcase with the money, and left that hellish house. I didn't look back once. I took a taxi. Destination: Peaceful Haven Psychiatric Facility. I entered the same familiar smell of disinfectant, but today I was no longer the crazy one who had escaped. I was a free woman. I headed toward my cell, no, Emily's cell, but I found a strange scene. In the common room, where I used to spend hours sitting without moving, today there were flowers and a cake. The hospital director and several nurses surrounded one person. It was Emily. She wore the patient gown, but her face was radiant. She was truly smiling. She was talking to people and giving thanks. "Congratulations, Lucy." The director shook my sister's hand. "It's incredible. A miraculous recovery." Emily saw me and ran to hug me and Ella. "Lucy, you're back." "Ella, my daughter." She kissed the child. I froze. "Sister, what is going on?" The director saw me. "Ah, you must be Emily, Lucy's twin sister. You are identical. You came to pick up your sister. Very good." He turned to me triumphantly. "I have wonderful news. Your sister Lucy is completely cured." "Cured?" I stammered. "Yes," the doctor nodded. "Last week we had the periodic psychological evaluation, and Lucy, not Emily, participated and passed it with an excellent score. All her psychological indices are stable. She is completely normal. We have observed her for 1 more week. She communicates well, and her emotions are stable. She is no longer crazy. Today we are processing her discharge." I looked at Emily. She winked at me. I understood. Emily, my sister, was never crazy. She was only repressed by fear. While I learned to control my anger in here for 10 years, she learned to swallow her fear out there. When she entered here, into my safe cell, and stopped receiving beatings and insults, she could be herself. And when she faced the psychological evaluation as a completely normal person, she passed it without problems. She had cured my name, Lucy. Yes, yes, I said, suppressing my emotion. I came to pick up my sister. The doctor signed the last paper and politely handed it to my sister. Here is the certificate of discharge. As of today, Lucy is completely free. Congratulations. Emily took the paper, looked at me, and we laughed together. That paper not only gave Lucy freedom, it gave freedom to both of us. I, Emily, was officially divorced. My sister, Lucy, was officially cured. I picked up the suitcase of money. Emily picked up Ella. The three of us, hand in hand, walked out the main door of the hospital. The dazzling sun didn't blind us. It was over. The hell was behind us. A taxi stopped in front of the main gate of Peaceful Haven. I took a deep breath. Still, that familiar scent of disinfectant. The smell that had permeated my skin and mind for 10 years, but today it was different. I didn't come as a patient, as the crazy number 7. I came as a free woman to pick up another free woman. I tightly squeezed the suitcase containing $550,000 and the heavy divorce papers. It was the price of my sister Emily's 7 years of hell and also the key to our future. Ella snuggled into my arms. She looked at the enormous iron gate curiously. Aunt Lucy, where are we? It looks like a scary place. No, little one. I stroked her hair. This is where Mommy Emily is waiting for us. We are going to take her home. I picked her up, grabbed the suitcase, and crossed the gate with confidence. I no longer had to lower my head or avoid the guards' gazes. I went directly to my ward, but as I got closer, I had a strange feeling. I heard music, applause, laughter. I entered the common room, where I used to spend hours staring at the white wall without moving. Today it was decorated. Flowers, a cake, and many people. The director, nurses I recognized, and even some other patients all surrounded one person. It was my sister Emily. She still wore the loose, striped patient gown, but she wasn't huddled or scared. She was in the center with flushed cheeks and a radiant smile. She was talking, thanking people. She was alive, full of life. Congratulations, Lucy, the director, a man in his 50s with glasses, politely shook my sister's hand. It's incredible. A miraculous recovery, a rare case in world medicine. Congratulations. Emily saw me, and her eyes lit up. No words were needed. She ran and hugged me and Ella. A warm, strong hug. Lucy, you're back! She exclaimed, still calling me Lucy. Then she turned to the child. Ella, my daughter. Oh my God, my girl. She kissed her, crying, but they were tears of happiness. I was perplexed. I looked at my sister, at the doctor. I still didn't understand what was happening. Sister, what is all this? The director approached me, smiling. Ah, you must be Emily, Lucy's twin sister. You are identical. You came to pick up your sister. You arrived just in time. He turned to me with a triumphant and proud expression, as if he had achieved a great feat. Wonderful news for the family. Your sister Lucy is completely cured. Cured? I repeated, a lump in my throat. Yes, cured. The doctor stroked his chin and nodded. Last week we conducted a periodic psychological evaluation on long-term patients. Lucy Emily participated and passed it with an excellent score. All her psychological indices are stable. She is completely normal. There are no more signs of anger, antisocial behavior, or delusions. I looked at Emily. She was winking at me. Naughty. I understood. I almost burst out laughing. What irony of the system. They locked me up for 10 years for being crazy, because I didn't control my anger and I resisted injustice. But Emily was normal, a good, fearful patient. When she entered here, into my safe cage, and stopped receiving beatings and insults, she was able to eat, sleep, read, and be herself. And when she faced the psychological evaluation as a completely normal and sane person, she passed it without problems. In the eyes of this system, her normalcy was seen as my recovery. She had cured my name, Lucy. What a sweet irony. Yes, I said in a trembling voice, suppressing my emotion. How wonderful. I came to pick up my sister. The director returned to his desk, signed the last paper, and stamped it. He approached courteously and handed the document to Emily. "Here is the certificate of discharge. Your file has been verified. As of today, Lucy is completely free and a normal citizen. Congratulations." Emily took the paper. She didn't cry, she just looked at me. We laughed together. That paper not only gave Lucy freedom, it gave freedom to both of us. I, Emily, had officially divorced the past. My sister, Lucy, was legally a normal person. I picked up the suitcase of money. Emily picked up Ella. "Thank you, director. Thank you, everyone." Emily said her goodbyes with a bow. "I owe you a lot." We turned around. The three of us, hand in hand, walked out of the common room, down the long corridor, and headed for the iron gate. It truly was over. Both hells were behind us. The heavy iron door closed behind us with a final screech. The dazzling summer sun flooded us. I covered my eyes with my hand. The last time I escaped, this sun smelled of war. This time, it smelled of freedom. It was warm. It smelled of tree sap, of life. Ella rested her head on her mother's shoulder. "Mommy, Aunt Lucy, where do we go now?" Emily looked at me, and I at her. We saw confusion in our eyes, but above all, great hope. Emily said. Her voice still trembled. "We are going home." "Home?" I asked. "Where?" Emily smiled. "Where the three of us are together, that is our home." I laughed. "You're right, but first we need a place to wash up and sleep. A very clean place." I hailed a taxi. "Sir, take us to the best hotel in the area." We rented a large hotel room with a bathtub and white sheets. When the room door closed, separating us from the noisy world, Emily finally relaxed. She put Ella down on the floor, collapsed, and burst into tears. She sobbed as if vomiting up the 7 years of humiliation, beatings, and fear that had settled in her bones. I sat beside her in silence and hugged her. Ella also, with her small arms, hugged her mother and me. "Mommy, don't cry. Aunt Lucy and Ella are here." We hugged like that, crying and then laughing. After a good bath, we ordered room service. Lots of food, roast chicken, soup, cake. The three of us ate a decent meal for the first time without fear or worry. Ella smeared cake all over her face and laughed heartily. Her crystalline laughter, like spring water, cleansed the darkness from our hearts. That night, I put the suitcase of money on the table. $550,000. "Sister, this is your money and Ella's," I said. Emily shook her head. "It's our money. If it weren't for you, my daughter and I would probably be dead. Lucy, you saved my whole life. We saved each other's lives." I held her hand. "Now we have to live. Live very well, also for our parents." The next day, we went shopping. The first thing we did was throw away all the old clothes. I threw away my patient gown. Emily threw away the ragged clothes of her married life. We bought new clothes, cheerful and colorful dresses. We also bought beautiful clothes for Ella. We looked like three completely different people. We didn't buy a house immediately with the money. We knew we needed time to settle down. I rented a small apartment in another neighborhood, far from that dark alley. An apartment on a high floor, full of Sunday. We decorated it ourselves. We bought a new bed for Ella and a very large bookshelf. I told Emily, for 10 years, my only friends were books. Now I want to read all the books in the world. Emily. She rediscovered her passion. She used to be very good at sewing. She bought a sewing machine. She started making dresses for Ella, making curtains. Our small home became cozier every day. Ella started going to daycare. At first, she was shy, but she soon made friends. She was an intelligent and affectionate child, and she was no longer afraid. One afternoon, at sunset, I was sitting on the balcony reading a book. Emily was preparing dinner in the kitchen. It smelled of fish stew, but this was a fish stew made with love, not the salty stew of hatred. Ella was coloring. Emily brought a plate of fruit. "What are you reading?" "A law book," I smiled. "I think I should know some things." "Are you angry?" Emily asked cautiously. I closed the book and looked at the shimmering sky. "Yes, I'm still angry." angry at that trash, angry at the 10 years I was locked up. But I turned to her. That rage no longer burns me. Now it's like an ember that reminds me how strong I was, and that I will never again let anyone trample on my sister, my niece, and myself. Emily smiled. Lucy, you no longer need to be crazy or pretend to be strong. Here, you just have to be Lucy, my sister. I nodded. I understood. My madness was not a disease, it was resistance. The madness was not in me, but in that family, in those soulless beings. We didn't flee from madness, we simply escaped the cage of the beasts. I looked at Emily smiling, at Ella humming a song. 10 years in the darkness were for seeing a single sunrise. Although delayed, still dazzling, our new life had just begun.